everyone, welcome back to In the Kitchen with Halifax Public Libraries. My name's Emily and I'm in the beautiful Sackville Library kitchen today, and I'm whipping up another delicious, affordable, and nutritious meal that you can make either for or with your family on any weekday night. So we're actually making a curry. Wait, don't go anywhere. It's not a spicy curry. We're actually using a really mild curry powder, and we're using coconut milk as well. So it's going to be really creamy, really delicious, and quite mild, even though it has a ton of flavor. So don't worry too much about the curry aspect of it. Today I'm actually making it in a pot so I can show you the end results, but you can definitely make this at home in a slow cooker. You would just need to put it in for 4 hours on low or on high for 8 hours. So it's a really adaptable recipe, and you can make it really simply in the slow cooker, but of course you can also make it in a pot. So the first thing I wanted to show you, because I actually haven't done this yet, was show you how to sharpen your knife. So a sharp knife is absolutely the most important tool in a kitchen, and without a sharp knife, it's a lot more dangerous to chop things because you're more likely for your knife to slip, more likely to cut yourself, and also it's a lot harder to cut through things. So if you invest in a $2 or $3 knife sharpener, I swear you will not regret it. I got this from Walmart or Canadian Tire, I believe, for under $3 or $4, and I use it all the time. So basically the way that you would sharpen your knife with something like this is that it has a coarse side and a fine side. So if you take your knife and you just run it through the coarse side, straight up and down, about 5 to 10 times, you'll hear a little bit of grinding, and just don't push too hard down. So as long as you're putting just a little bit of pressure, it'll be sharpening your blade. And once you're done on the coarse side, you can move on over to the fine side, and that just refines your blade and makes it even sharper. So for any curry, the first step is to add what you call the trifecta of ingredients in most Asian cuisine. So you start out with onions, garlic, and ginger to really build the flavor in your curry. So I'm going to start with chopping an onion. I know that you've seen me do this a few times now, but I'm going to do one final demonstration of how to easily cut your onion. So with your onion just in one place, you can take your knife, cut it right through the center so the root is still intact, and then peel. So it's a lot easier to peel your onion when you have it cut in half, because peeling onions can be a little bit tricky sometimes if you're starting with the whole onion. Take the peel off. And the reason that you want to start with your onion is because the more color you get on your onion when you're cooking, the more delicious your curry is going to turn out. So it really helps to build that flavor right from the beginning. So we'll be caramelizing these onions for a few minutes to build that flavor. And I'll just get my pot hot while I'm chopping to make sure it's ready to put the onions in. So to begin chopping your onion, you can actually just take off the tip, but leave your root on the bottom, and use your knife to cut horizontally 2 or 3 times depending on how big your onion is. So I did 2 horizontal chops and about 6 or 7 vertical chops. Turn your onion around once more, and remember your claw shape to protect your fingers while you're chopping. And just run it through and make nice, even pieces of your onion. Once you get to the end, you can freestyle a little bit and throw your root away because you don't need that part. I added a little bit of cooking spray to my pot. You don't need very much to brown your onions. And I like to use cooking spray because it helps to control the amount of oil that you're using in your food, because oil can actually add a lot of calories to your meal since it's fat. All right, so now that my onions are chopped, I'm going to go ahead and add them right into my pot. I'm cooking on medium heat, and we can turn it up a little bit later if you're feeling confident and comfortable, but right now I'm going to start out at a medium heat. So while your onions are sauteing, I'm going to go ahead and chop up some garlic. I'm adding a lot of garlic because, as you know, I love putting lots of garlic in my recipe. I'm going to put 5 cloves, but you can always just put 2 or 3 if you're not a huge garlic fan. Like I said, garlic is in most Indian cuisine because it just really builds that flavor in the dish. And also, if you're feeling a little bit adventurous, you can also add ginger to your recipe because that's a really popular ingredient in most curries. We're not using ginger today because a lot of people maybe don't want to run out and buy ginger just for one recipe, so it's completely up to you. But the good thing to know about ginger is it can easily freeze. So if you put just a piece of ginger in the freezer and take it out when you need it, you can actually grate it on a cheese grater and add it right to your recipe and just put the rest right back into the freezer. So it will last a really long time. And you can see my garlic trick I've shown before, that you just tap your garlic clove under the heel of your knife and it will help the skin release from the garlic clove. You can also remove the little root end from your garlic, so it will be a little bit tough to chew. So there are a few tips of how to get the garlic smell off of your fingers when you're peeling a lot of garlic. I've heard that you can put some toothpaste on your fingers and that'll help remove the smell. Some people say if you rub it on like stainless steel, that can do the trick. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But I usually just give my hands a good wash and that does the trick pretty well as well. If you don't have time to chop garlic from scratch, you can also buy pureed garlic or pre-chopped garlic from the grocery store. It's not cheating, but I find that fresh garlic has a little bit stronger of a flavor. So if you don't have time, buying pre-chopped is completely okay. It just might not have that strong garlicky taste if that's what you're looking for. Alright, so I'm just going to add my garlic to the pot now to saute along with my onions. And you're going to start smelling delicious things in your kitchen soon. Alright, so while this is steaming and sauteing and becoming a nice golden color, we're going to wait to add our spices before we add any other ingredients. And in most curries this is done because you really need to toast those spices in order for the flavors to come out of the spices. So if you were, for example, to add a bunch of spice to a curry after you'd already added all the wet ingredients, it might taste a little bit bitter and not quite cooked through. So toasting those spices really helps bring that flavor together and bring the flavor out in your spice. Today we're just using a mild curry powder. This is the yellow kind that you would find in most grocery stores, and it only costs a couple dollars for a package. This isn't a traditional Indian curry powder, but it is something that tastes really delicious. So if you just want a mild taste that has a little bit of a hint of curry, I recommend this. It has just a pinch of cumin in there, there's a little bit of turmeric and other spices to just make it a nice mellow curry. But if you were wanting to experiment a little bit more with Indian cuisine, they call their curry powder masalas. So a masala really just means a mixture of spices, and that's what's used to make curry. So at this point you must be asking, what is a curry? What makes something a curry? So a curry is basically just any dish that's cooked with an assortment of spices or a masala and has basically a sauce. So sauce and meat, sauce and vegetables that has like a nice mixture of spice. So that's what a curry would be defined as. So we're definitely making a curry today. And a tip for you if you don't want to go out and buy all these different spices, because it does get a little bit expensive to buy a huge assortment of spices, you can go to Bulk Barn. So I really like going to Bulk Barn to get just a little tiny bit of this and a little tiny bit of that, so I can try it and make sure I like it before I commit to buying a big bag. And that'll save you a lot of money. And in that way you can almost make your own masalas at home. For example, if you love smoked paprika and you love garlic, but you're not a big fan of cumin, you can make your own chili powder or your own spice mix. So it's really easy to improvise in the kitchen if you just go to Bulk Barn and buy little things to try and mix it yourself at home. So now that my onions are a little bit more golden and I can really smell them in the kitchen, I'm going to go ahead and add my spices. And this is 3 teaspoons of the curry powder. So the trick here is you definitely don't want to burn your spices. You just want to toast them so the flavors come through. And a way that you can tell the spices are ready is when you really start to smell them. So when I'm cooking with my partner at home, I'll yell into the other room, "Can you smell it yet?" And he'll say, "Yeah," and I'll know that the spices are toasted and ready. So that's kind of a little tip for you. So it only takes a few minutes, about 1 minute, for your spices to toast nicely. While those are toasting, I'm going to finish chopping up my carrots and my celery. And you'll notice in a lot of recipes that we've made together, I use onions, celery, and carrots in all of them. And that's the reason it's so easy to cook if you have simple recipes. You can use similar ingredients over and over, buy a giant bag of carrots, a big thing of celery, and you can just keep making delicious recipes. So I'll finish chopping up these carrots. And I'd already chopped a few beforehand, so I'll add those right into my curry. And adding this type of vegetable just makes it really nutritious, really filling, and very colorful. So there's lots of benefits to adding extra veggies to your curry. I'm also going to add celery, just a small dice of celery, and I'm adding 2 stalks of celery. All right, and I already chopped a bit of that as well, so I'm going to add that right in. And to make this a healthy plate recipe, so I've talked about this a few times, but making sure you have half your plate of vegetables, a quarter of protein, and a quarter of a grain. We're already halfway there. So we have half of our veggies. We're going to be adding our protein in the form of lentils, and we're going to be serving this with a whole wheat roll. So you could also serve it with something like a piece of naan bread, which is a little bit more traditional. It's an Indian flatbread. But I just like to put a roll on the side myself. So once you have your spices toasted and all of your veggies added in, I recommend adding just a splash of liquid. So I'm going to add a little bit of veggie broth just to make sure the spices don't burn on the bottom of the pot. But don't add 3 cups yet. I know in your recipe it specifies 3 cups, but we're going to add that a little bit later on. Give that a stir and kind of scrape off the bottom. So when you have spices and other stuff sticking to the bottom of your pot, don't get worried, because that's actually called fond, and fond helps to bring a lot of flavor to your dish. So if you deglaze your pan with a little bit of liquid, water, chicken stock, even wine, it can help scrape that fond off the bottom of the pot and bring a ton of flavor into your dish. So this is looking pretty beautiful so far. This is what it's looking like. Very colorful. And we're also going to add our potatoes at this point. So I chopped 1 giant potato, but it might be closer to 2 potatoes if you have medium size at home. Just going to add these right in. And you really want to coat your vegetables with the spice mix before you start adding your liquid, because that helps penetrate all of those beautiful vegetables in your curry so they all have this beautiful curry flavor. And you'll notice that a lot of curries have kind of a yellow tint to them. That's because most curries have turmeric in them. And turmeric is really just an anti-inflammatory and also helps kill bacteria. So that's why a lot of dishes include just a touch of turmeric. But turmeric is actually very, very yellow. And so if you get any on your fingers or on your counter, it will actually turn it a little bit yellow. And as you can see, our curry is looking a little bit yellow too. So the next thing I'm going to add now that everything's mixed together is our lentils and a little bit of salt and pepper and our stock. So I'm using vegetable stock today, but you can totally use water if you don't want to bother going and buying a box of vegetable stock, and it will work just as well. You might want to add a little bit more spice or a little bit more salt and pepper to compensate for using water instead of stock, but it's still going to turn out really great. All right, so I'm going to add in our lentils. That a little stir. That was just 1 can of brown lentils. And we're going to add 3 cups of vegetable stock. So that's 2. And 3. And just a bit of salt and pepper. So remember, with salt and pepper, you can always add more, but you can never take away. So it's good to add it in small little bits, give it a taste once it's done cooking. You can always add more at the end. So I'm just going to do a few cracks of sea salt, but any table salt will be fine. And just a little pinch of pepper. I'm going to let this simmer for 30 minutes on medium heat. And once the potatoes are soft, you'll know that it's ready. So once those potatoes are soft, I would recommend you take a potato masher if you have one, and just mush them up a little so it's kind of smooth and lovely. And once you do that, you can add your coconut milk to make it a creamy, delicious lentil curry. And the smell is already pretty amazing in here, so I'm really excited. And I'll try to lift this up a little bit so you can see, but that's what it should look like at this stage. And I'm just going to let this alone for about 30 minutes and we'll be back to give it a try. We're back and our curry is looking and smelling amazing. I already started mushing it a little bit, but like I said, I knew it was ready because the potatoes were soft. So I just scooped one out, took a little bite, and I knew that it was ready. So this recipe is very similar to an Indian dish called dal, which is also made with lentils. And we're actually adding coconut milk as well, so it's going to be creamy, rich, and delicious. Something I just wanted to do before we start mashing and adding our milk was to talk a little bit more about lentils. So I know that I've talked a lot about pulses and chickpeas and beans, but lentils are absolutely my favorite thing to add to dishes to bring so much fiber and protein to them. And the reason I love lentils so much is because they have so much fiber and protein that they make you feel full longer all through the day. So a dish of this delicious curry is actually going to really hold you off until the next meal. So if you're interested in learning more about protein content and fiber and all this nutrition mumbo jumbo, you can actually take a look at the label on one of your cans. And when you're looking at nutrition labels, the first thing you want to look at is how much per serving. So for one serving of lentils, it's 1 cup. And the most important thing is looking at that serving, because if you're eating twice as much as what the serving size is, everything else that comes after it is going to be double or triple the amount. So 1 cup of lentils is 6 grams of fiber, which is 24% of your daily need, which is super high. And it's 12 grams of protein. So to give you some context, a big piece of chicken is 20 grams of protein. So that's a pretty good amount in your meal. So if you're wondering how do I know how much is a little and how do I know how much is a lot of something, under 5% is considered a little. So you'd want a little bit of sodium or a little bit of saturated fat. And something that is 15% or more is considered a lot. So for example, 6 grams of fiber is 24% of your daily needs, so that's considered a lot of fiber in your dish. So that's just a really quick review of how to read a nutrition label. I would suggest go into your cupboard and look at a few of the items that you eat all the time and see what has a little and a lot of things that are nutritious or things you want to avoid a little bit more. So that's a little tip for you. We're just going to mash up our delicious curry here. And this is what it's looking like. So we're going to try to get it as smooth as possible. If you do have a blender, you can do this in small batches. Don't do hot soups in large batches in your blender because it might explode. But if you do it in small batches, you can get it really smooth and beautiful. And another alternative, if you have one, is an immersion blender. So you can actually just stick that right into your pot and blend it up smooth. But if you have some chunks and texture left in your soup after using the potato masher, that's completely fine. It's still going to be really delicious. So if it looks something like this, you did it right. And the last thing we're going to add is our coconut milk. So coconut milk is so delicious, such a great thing to add to your recipes. It's very affordable, so a can is under $2, and it goes a long way. And also coconut milk, it does have a bit of saturated fat, but since we have no meat in our recipe today, it really balances out. So it has a little bit of fat in there, but it also has that immense flavor. So we're gonna go ahead and add our coconut milk in and get our soup nice and creamy. It also cools it down so you can eat it a little quicker as well. You'll see it has a nice glossy look to it now. It looks delicious. And so we're gonna taste it and see if we need any more salt and pepper. I think it needs a little bit more salt and pepper, but besides that, it tastes pretty great. And that should do. So that's your end product, your delicious coconut lentil curry. I'm gonna dish this into a bowl, and I'm gonna serve it with a whole wheat roll, so we have our full healthy plate meal. And one full bowl would be about one serving of this. So here's our finished product. I hope that yours turned out as beautiful and delicious as mine did, and that your whole family really enjoys it, and you're a little bit more inspired to test some spices and to try curries at home, especially in the slow cooker. Those are really, really convenient and delicious recipes to make. So thank you so much for joining us within the kitchen today. I hope to see you next time. See ya.